Say a special thank you to the Outreach Committee of Holy Cross, especially the person who spearheaded this, to Sonia Marsden. So thank you, Sonia, for pulling most of these details together. And just as a reminder that we are having a packing party, and we need you to supply the things that we pack. There are some flyers that Sonia has handed out, and thank you, Maud, for doing such a nice job on the graphics. And so we need you to bring these things so that we can pack these cases. Okay, and after we do this, what our hope is, we're going to do it again.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to do this more than once. We hope that you get inspired and that this turns into a sustainable, ongoing program for Holy Cross. Because what I said this morning and what I'm going to say again in the next service is what we do is important. Okay, and now, Rob Scherer.
Wow, good morning. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. To speak about what I feel should be the most important topic for all of us that we should talk about, and that's our children. See, God tells us in Proverbs 22:6, train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. See, I also know that Nelson Mandela once said that everyone, regardless of their race, their age, they have one thing in common. And that thing is they want their children to be happy. See, I know as a parent, I want my children to be more than happy. I want them to flourish. See, when my husband and I adopted our 4 children out of foster care, little did we know that this would be our journey. See, I guarantee you that my journey never started like yours. See, I grew up in this beautiful state of Virginia, just not far down the road. I remember living in every shelter that there was in Maryland, Virginia, D.C. I was the youngest of 10 kids. My mother had been married 6 times, and she really didn't know what to do, except for take us from shelter to shelter to shelter. Then when I was 10 years old, my parents died. For me, it was one of the happiest days of my life, and I know that's sad for you guys to hear that. But you have to understand that the abuse that a drug addict mother, an alcoholic father, gave to their children. So for me, I thought going to another family was going to be the key. Little did I know that carrying my trash bag up one of many homes was really how my community defined me. See, I was one of those kids that you probably didn't realize, and most of you didn't look at, because I was a good kid. I listened to my teachers. I made sure that I said yes, sir, and no, ma'am, because I didn't want to be what I already knew the statistics were. So as I traveled on my life journey, as I became 12 and 13 and 14, 15 and 16, I kept waiting for a teacher to walk into the classroom and say, hey, Robert, come out and let's fill out some college applications. That never happened. I kept seeing other kids in my junior year as they would go to the guidance counselor and do something that I think you guys call an SAT. They never asked me to take that test. I remember when I became a senior in high school, it was in the fall of 1984. And when most of everyone was excited to graduate from high school, I was kind of a little scared. I was scared because so far no one talked to me about where I was to go until I got home and I was given my trash bag. That's right, I was given my trash bag in the fall of my senior year, and I became homeless right here in this rich state. I remember taking my trash bag and hiding it behind the school at Stonewall Jackson Senior High School and walking into that school and pray that the kids didn't make fun of me. See, I remember what it was like to have holes in my shoes. Couldn't tell you the last time I had brushed my teeth. These pearly whites cost me an arm and a leg because no one ever bothered to stop to give me a toothbrush. I remember going into the senior lounge because my stomach was so hungry, and I waited for the other kids to leave as I dug through the trash. As I dug through the trash to grab enough food to make sure that I would eat that night, eat that next day. When Friday nights would come around, it was probably one of the saddest days for me because I knew that I was going to have 2 days where I had nowhere to go. 2 days that I had to figure out where was I going to be. So I would go to the public library. I would go to the public library and I would sit there from the time it opened up until the time it closed. I would read every single book I got my hands on. And by the way, not to read that book to educate myself, but to read that book to escape. See, if I got into that book, I didn't have to realize what was going on. There was an old taco place down the road on Route 28, and the taco owner used to leave the back door unlocked for me in the bathroom. There was an outside bathroom, and he would leave that door unlocked for me to sleep at nights when it was really cold. And I remember taking those books from the library and sitting there and reading, and kept really understanding that I deserved better. See, I knew that there was something better for me. People ask me all the time, how did I have the drive to get where I'm at today? And I will tell you, it was my faith. It was my faith. No matter whether you realize it or not, I was mad at God. I couldn't believe that he had put this young boy in a situation that he was in. But I just knew I deserved better. So I got out of the high school and I joined the Navy. I joined the Navy, and by the way, not because I was proud of my country. I joined the Navy because I was scared. I joined the Navy because I was hungry. I joined the Navy because I had nowhere to go. So when I got into the Navy, I made something of myself. I became a successful businessman. I listened to what needed to do, and I started climbing the corporate ladder. Wow, a homeless kid with no education climbed a corporate ladder. But I was a failure. See, I was a liar. When I graduated out of the Navy, I went to a public library again, and I falsified my resume. I told them that I had worked jobs that I had not worked. I had an education that I had not had, but I got a job. 3 years into that job, I walked into my boss's office and I handed him a letter of resignation. And he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I have to quit." And he said, "Why?" I said, "Because I lied to you. I lied to you to get the interview. I lied to you to get the job." I remember my boss looking at me and saying, "You know what, Rob? You're probably one of the hardest workers I've ever met, the most honest person I've ever met." Ripped up my letter of resignation and said, "Get back to work." I think what that truly did teach me, though, is that people did care. And that wall that I had been building for years slowly was starting to chip away. I moved to D.C. As I said, I had a successful business. I was hobnobbing with senators and congressmen and CEOs, had a beautiful brownstone, and then met the person of my dreams. A person who had the same exact values that I had. The difference was he was really educated and I didn't. Couldn't tell you the difference between there, and there. But I made sure that he realized that my passion to be a dad was the most important thing. See, I didn't have a father. Truly didn't have a mother, but I knew that I needed to be a parent. I knew that if I could make sure that children got change, I could truly help them. And one Saturday morning, we were watching the news. Barbara Harrison came on. Most of you know who she is from NBC. And she showed a child in foster care. And I remember Reese looking at me and saying, "Explain to me again why we are adopting a child overseas." I said, "Because we don't talk about those children." He said, "Do you realize not talking about those children, you were one of them?" At that particular moment, I realized what a failure. No matter how many dollars were in my checking account, how big my home was, how many friends I had failed my community. See, my community is the 436,000 children there in the foster care system. I had failed them because I was embarrassed of them and embarrassed of me. So that particular Monday, we went to DC Child and Family Services and said, "We would like to adopt." They said, "It's a 2-year waiting list." I said, "A 2-year waiting list? How could we have to wait 2 years?" I had already done some research and realized that at that particular moment there was over 2,500 kids in DC. And they said, "Yeah, it's a little hard for you to get a baby." Yeah, we wanted a baby, just like most parents do. But we decided to say that we would take any child under the age of 5. And they told us that if we fostered to adopt, it would probably move a little faster. So that's what we did. We put in our paperwork, we started our test, we did everything that was required, and then we waited. And we waited, and we waited. 5 months goes by, still no child has entered our home. I remember calling DC Child and Family Services almost on a daily basis saying, "What's going on here?" Other people who had taken classes with us had received their children already, but not Reese and I. Finally, I was able to get somebody on the phone who admitted to me that they were sorry because we were two white men trying to adopt an African American child, they felt we were not fit. We were not fit because you labeled us as gay. We did not fit because you labeled us as white. The problem is, we just wanted to be parents. Fortunately enough, somebody took our applications and said, we're going to do something about it. And lo and behold, within a matter of 2 weeks, 2 most amazing children arrived in my home. A little girl who was 4 years old and her little brother who was 2. I remember when the doorbell rang and the social worker standing there with these 2 little kids. The little boy, who by the way looked like he was under a year, and I said to her, I thought you said he was 2. And she says he is. She says he has fetal alcohol syndrome, ADHD, autism, everything that you can think of, and he's never going to talk, and he probably will never walk. She handed him to me and said, are you sure you want this one? Like he was a piece of clothing. The little girl, as she stood there with no smile on her face and a blank stare, all carrying a trash bag. A trash bag with nothing but torn and tattered items in it. I remember sitting there with the social worker and asking, what was their story? See, I do know we all have a story. Each and every one of you have a story. And your story can impact people even sitting next to you. The story of my 2 older children, where they were found in an abandoned home. A piece of plyboard put over the playpen. As they smoked their crack, they threw Cheerios in. My son Mackay had never been picked up for 18 months. He had such what they call failure to thrive. They said he will never talk. But we knew that there was no such thing as never. See, I was told that I would never amount to anything. I was told as a community, because of our statistics, I should not have been where I was. See, 2 out of 3 kids that enter our system will either be dead or in jail. Only 54% graduate from high school. Only 12% apply for a 4-year college, and only 2% graduate. I know if that was happening in your school district, you would make that change. So as I continued the journey with our children that particular night, Reese and I were pulling the items out of the trash bag and looking at our daughter Amaya and wondering why she wouldn't smile. We took her shopping, and we shopped like we had never shopped before. Every time she looked at something, it went in the cart. As a matter of fact, that night we actually had 2 carts. We got so many items. But still, she never smiled. She just looked blank. We got home that night and we filled up that tub. We filled up that tub with more toys and bubbles she could barely fit in, thinking that she would smile. I remember looking at Reese and saying, this was the happiest day of my life, but I'm going to have the saddest little girl. She walked into her bedroom that night and she picked up a nightgown and she tore the tag off of it. She turned around and she smiled. I remember looking at her and saying, Amaya, why are you smiling? And she said, Mr. Rob, I've never owned a new nightgown before. That's just not acceptable. As she went into the bathroom to brush her teeth and she cried, I couldn't figure out why. Why would a child cry for having their teeth brushed? Until that week when we took her to the dentist and realized that she had 8 cavities. That no one had ever bothered to teach this 4-year-old little girl how to brush her teeth, how to take care of the smallest things that we all take for granted. So we continued on our journey. Little did I know that we would get another call about 2 other amazing little boys. 2 boys who had been in 2 other foster homes and really needed a forever family. See, I know that I needed children to want me as much as I wanted them. My sons arrived to me, and as hard as it is to say, my one son's mother was 12. She was a product of the system. He arrived in our home with 3 broken ribs, bleeding of the brain. His little brother, where she had taken a razor blade when she was 14 and carved her boyfriend's initials in him. She was a product of our environment. She wasn't a bad girl. She wasn't a bad human. We just had failed her. See, we as a community fail our children every single day. And you need to realize these are our children. They are not the state's. They are not your government's. They are your children. See, children in care have never asked to be there. They are put there in situations that they had no choice about. Most of you do not realize that the majority of children who enter our system enter in the back of a police cruiser. They come in the system not with a trash bag, but with nothing but the clothes on their back. They go to a holding center where they can sit up to 8 hours doing nothing. That's when they get their trash bag. But we knew that these 4 kids needed more than just 2 dads to love them. We needed these 4 kids to know that we as families are doers. See, I truly believe that each and every one of you are doers. Doers are what make this world go round. Doers are the reason we are here today. So we, as we started our journey, decided that, you know what? We're going to do something different. We're going to teach our children that you must give. We are going to teach our children that it is not a responsibility for you to give, but a privilege. It is a privilege for you to give to your community every single day. And it does not matter whether you live in this cute little town, or maybe my town of Darnestown, Maryland, or maybe you're in Dallas or Seattle. We are all part of the same community. Our forefathers built community for only one reason, and that was for you and I to take care of each other. It was not to make sure that Mrs. Rose down the street didn't paint her door pink. Somehow we have forgotten that. We have forgotten why we were put here. See, I truly believe that Jesus was an amazing man. I believe that Jesus loved his community. I believe that he came here to teach us how we should love each other, just like Nelson Mandela, just like Gandhi, just like Mother Teresa. The one thing they all had in common is they loved unconditionally. We have forgotten that along the way. So as our journey continued, we probably did what all of you probably do around Christmas time. You grab a bunch of angels off a tree, you buy some toys for the needy kids, and you feel real good. Then on December the 26th, you wake up. We woke up. Our lives went on. We didn't think much about those kids who we were giving toys to, about what was their journey. Until one Christmas we said, we need to do this a little different. We need to show our children that kids in foster care deserve to have more than a trash bag. See, I still have that trash bag that my children carried. I think about it quite often, and about the bag that I carried, about the fact that people has made the choice to describe us as invisible children, disposable children. See, on Thursday nights, we take our trash out to the street. We dispose of it. Children should not carry a trash bag. So we got our kids together and said, okay, what can we do? We started talking about the journey of my kids, about how the pajamas changed my daughter. So we knew a pair of pajamas with a tag. We talked about the toothbrush and wanted to make sure that every single child had a toothbrush. And by the way, my children had been in 2 other foster homes and still with no toothbrush. We talked about a bar of soap. A bar of soap. See, when I was 10, I remember walking down the hallway as my foster mother told me it was time to take a shower. I remember walking into that bathroom with the green tile on the shower, and I remember seeing a bar of soap laying there. You know, that bar of soap changed my life at that moment, because at that particular moment, I realized I did not matter. See, if you do not think that a bar of soap means anything, the next time you go to a hotel, call them. Tell them to leave the bar of soap from the people before you. Get in the shower, lather yourself up. It's called dignity. These kids do not even know the names of the homes they go to, much less to feel a connection. They deserve to have their own bar of soap, their own lotion, their own shampoo, their own conditioner, because at the end of the day, they don't want to ask. They don't want to be a burden. So let's give it to them. My kids and I started talking about how that we know that children go to holding centers with nothing to do. So we're going to give them an activity. Children under the age of 10 will get a coloring book and crayons, and kids over the age of 10 will get a pen, pencil, and a journal. See, about 6 months ago, the Pediatric Association came out with a study, and they said children who are in foster care and that are adopted who journal test higher than kids who don't. They could have saved a lot of money and just asked me. I could have told them that already. Journaling is a key. And then I said, a book. A book. Every single child deserves to have a book. See, I remember what that book meant to me. I believe that book is the reason I am here today. How many of you have bookshelves at home with books on them? Not to be rude, but who are you trying to impress? Nobody walks into your home and says, look at all the books you have. See, in our home, we believe that books were made for only one reason: to love them in your mind, love them in your heart, and then pass them on. Love them in your mind, love them in your heart, and then pass them on. See, there's no such thing as a used book. It's only a book that's been loved. So we make sure that we pass on our books. We make sure that we tell other people, if you want to impact your community, pass your books on. It's only collecting dust on those shelves. So then at the final thing, my son Grayson, who by the way is here today with me, Grayson said, Daddy, we have to put a blanket. I said, a blanket? He said, yes. I said, you know these kids are not cold. And he said, no, Daddy. When they wrap themselves up in that blanket, they know that we love them. He was 6. He got it. Because at the end, that's what we want. We want to be loved. You come to this church to be with your fellow neighbors. And I know that most of you come here because you feel the love. Because that's what we all want. We want to be wanted. So we knew at that point that we would help out kids. By the way, we were helping kids in Virginia because this is where I was from. Kids in Maryland, in my little town of Darnestown in Montgomery County. And then we didn't want to forget the kids in D.C. We thought we would do 200 cases and that's where our journey would stop. Little did I know that 4.5 years later, we have donated 35,000 cases to 36 states, including D.C. and Puerto Rico. And must I remind you all, Puerto Rico belongs to us. Let's not forget it. But what I have found out is that my community loves me. That my community wanted me. I remember in my 30s finally forgiving God for all the things that had happened to me. And when that day happened, wow, did I become a rich man. A rich man in my heart, a rich man in my soul. Because I knew at that moment, he had always loved me. He had always heard me. But most important, he always cared about me. I want my children to know every single day that that's what your life should be like. You should care for each other. We tell our children the following things. Number 1, use your listening ears, because everyone that you sit next to has a story. Number 2, use your kind words. Never ever have we changed anything with hateful words. But the most important thing that you must do is lead by example. That's what's important. When it's all over, we all end up in the same size box. And no one ever says, how much did you have? What they say is, how much did you impact your community? So I want to thank you. I want to thank you for having your packing party. I know that doing this will make a difference. I hate to tell you all of these statistics, but this state, we've got a problem. We have more kids aging out in the state of Virginia than any other state. 33% of the kids that are aging out in this state become homeless. 33%. Do you realize that a girl who enters our system today, she will be pregnant by the time she's 18? I will tell you right now that she is not pregnant because she is a bad girl. There's no such thing as a bad child. It's only a child that must be redirected. Teach them to love themselves, and then they will love others. Children in foster care suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder twice the rate as our combat veterans. They need us. They need us to step up and realize that they are our children. I know this is hard for some of you, but I want you to know that this is the only way that we can make change. We must talk about it. We must realize that these children need us. For so many years, we have made money on the backs of children in care, and it must stop today. You know, people come to me, and I'm blessed to go all over the country and talk about kids in care. They come to me and say the system is broken. No, it is not. See, I teach my children all the time, if something is broken, bring Daddy the super glue. I'll put it back together. If it is shattered, we must rebuild it. And this system is shattered. And we have to rebuild it, even if it's by one case at a time. People say to me all the time, Rob, what would you do differently? Number one, I would set these children up for financial success. Financial success. And number two, I would give them an education. An education that doesn't cost them anything. Remember, they didn't ask to be in the system. Let's support them while they're there, and then when they come out. I know that each and every one of you are doers. So, start doing. Clear off the bookshelves at home when you get home. You know you have a lot of books. The next time that you go to a hotel, do not use the soap and the shampoo and the lotion. Bring it back and donate it. I guarantee you, your congregation will get it to our center. And the next time you decide to stop at Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts and get a cup of coffee, go to Target and buy a pair of pajamas. That tag will change a child's life. So thank you. Thank you for having me here this morning. I hope that you all visit our website, comfortcases.org. Find out how you can impact your community. We are a 98% volunteer-ran charity. We have absolutely no corporate sponsors. Everything that we do is because of you. Every case that we have been building is because of you. Every single time we help a child, it is because of you. I have a full-time job that I absolutely love, but I have a job that pays my heart, and that's Comfort Cases. Most people can never say they have that amazing experience, but I do. So thank you. Thank you so much. I hope you have an amazing Sunday. And does anybody have questions? No questions. A lot of tears. Thank you.
Education is the key. And I'm wondering, you probably have approached people about this, but free admission to community college maybe to get them started?
You're amazing.
That
Great
makes
question.
sense.
Great question. So I work for a company called KVC. KVC is the largest nonprofit social service agency in the United States. We've been around for about 30 years. By the way, I was in the banking institution for over 25 years, and someone came to me and said, you need to go and talk about foster care to people. So I literally quit my career, and this is what I do. But the reason I'm saying that is because we are opening up the first ever college that will be opening up in Montgomery, West Virginia for children who are aging out of foster care. It's a first. It's going to be a life changer for these kids. I'm excited that applications start in September. Children will start arriving, and by the way, they're all children in my eyes. They will start arriving in January, and guess what? Virginia is one of the states that have been chosen to have applications come in, along with DC, along with Ohio and West Virginia. So we have right now enough funding for 200 children. So please go to Riverbend. Riverbend is the name of our college. It's called KVC. Please go and see how you can support those children. And when you talk about do we give? So most states do help children in care when it comes to education, but let's talk about the big issue. In December, when the school closes, where do they go? In the summer, when the school closes, where do they go? See, I was just recently in Texas last August, and a girl walked up to me, beautiful young lady, who said to me, I'm going to be one of the 2%. I'm going to be one of the 2%. I'm going to go to college and graduate, but I'm scared. And I said, of course you're scared. I said, I'm scared every day I get in front of people and talk. She said, no, the school closes in December. I have to go live at a shelter. Mind you, this was August, where she should have been thinking about how she was going to, decorate her dorm and was she taking the right classes. But instead, she was thinking about December, because she was going to be homeless. The problem that these children do not end up getting their education is because they get so tied up in their everyday life, having to figure out how to keep a roof over their head, they can't think about school. So that's what we must change. We must set them up financially. I had another young man just recently. I was in Indiana, and I was speaking at a group home. And by the way, group homes, just to let you know what that is, that's just us being Americans trying to make us feel better. They're nothing more than an orphanage. If you all remember the days when they did the special reports of the orphanages in Romania, the children who were sleeping on concrete floors, we in America said, oh my gosh, we can't call them orphanages anymore because you might think we're like that. So now what we do is we call them group homes. And if you have visited them, they're not much better. I just visited one in Indiana where there was a little boy who was 7 years old who had been living in a group home for 2 years. A group home. Nobody tucking him in. No one saying, how was your day? Because it's a group home. But the saddest part was the boy who I met who was turning 18, who was getting ready to get his own apartment until they pulled his credit. His credit was destroyed because his birth parents got furniture and electric and cable and never paid it. So it destroyed his credit. They used his social security number. Happens every single day, and we don't think about things like that. So now here is this boy who has no idea what to do. Apartment complex isn't going to rent to him. He doesn't have the money to get an attorney to fight this. He's not educated enough to contact the credit bureaus because it takes months and months and months. So he said to me, I guess I'm going to go live in that shelter. We failed him. So we should give college an education, but we don't. State of California gives education as long as you maintain a 2.9. The young man who got a 2.8 and got a bill for a 4-year schooling. The last time I checked, and I've interviewed thousands of people in my career, I never once said, what is your GPA? So why should it matter? Any other questions?
Do you have any idea how many kids are getting out of the foster system this year in Virginia?
So, this is the saddest part. You can tell in our state of Virginia, you can ask certain numbers and people will know it right off the top of their head. Asking numbers in foster care, they do not want to share them. We do know that there is about 6,000 kids in the state of Virginia. We do not know the number that is completely aging out. We have not done a statistic count since 2015. That's not acceptable. We know that right now we have a little over 437,000 children in foster care. By the way, 2015 is when we made that count. The one thing that we do know is that there are 4,600 children missing. See, human trafficking, foster care is a gateway to human trafficking. I don't know if you guys realize, but you live in the 3rd largest area for human trafficking. Texas is number 1. California is number 2, and the DC corridor is number 3. Children who come in care are prone for human trafficking. So the fact that we have 4,600 children missing, and what we hear is they're runaways. Last time I checked, if a child's missing that much, we put their name and their picture on a milk carton. We hang them up on billboards. Let's find our children. But people won't talk about the kids that are aging out. Or let's talk about the number of children in your state that will not live to the end of the year. You have 4 that are under the age of 2 because of neglect. Those are the only statistics I have. Yes?
What has been the response of national churches to this national problem? And are any of them catching on or starting to make a difference?
No. No. And let me tell you, if these churches would actually step up and do what we all should be doing, we would have no children in foster care. Did you know that? We would literally have no group homes. For the amount of people who have some type of faith base where they go on Sunday, would step up and be foster parents, we would not have any group homes. Instead, we have so many organizations who are against us in Texas, will not allow gay people to adopt. They will not allow them to be foster parents. They actually just signed a law in Texas and in Kansas that said we cannot ever foster a child. And so the problem is you got to put that aside. My children do not care that we are white, much less that we are gay. What they care about is we love them. We love them. So no, we're not seeing that at all. And as a matter of fact, we're seeing it's worse. And let's take Catholic Charities, for example. Catholic Charities who were based in D.C., who really helped us when it came to having kids in foster care, who really was a very amazing organization. As soon as the federal government came in and said, you must allow people of the same sex to adopt and to foster, Catholic Charity got out of the foster care system. So they're no longer in it. Because they said, that's a sin. The last time I checked, at the end of the day, I'm the only one that's going to stand in front of my Maker. I'm the one that's going to be judged, not you. So for them to say that, the number of children, and by the way, in D.C. it was pretty sad, because what happened is all the kids that were in these Catholic charity foster homes, when they pulled out, they pulled those kids from those families. Yeah, they pulled them from those families. It's bad. It's bad. So no, we're not seeing the churches step up. I don't know about you. Has anybody ever come to your church and ever talked to you about foster care? Yeah, me either. We live in Darnestown. We go to Fairhaven United Methodist Church. I say it to my minister all the time. Isn't it crazy that nobody's ever come to our congregation and talked about being a foster parent? You know, I say this all the time. If you cannot adopt, foster. If you cannot foster, volunteer. If you cannot volunteer, donate. And if you cannot donate, educate yourself. Educate yourself. Any other questions? Thank you. Thank you so much. My son and I have another place to go to. I hope, again, visit comfortcases.org. Thank you.
On the state level, is it possible to have the colleges allow those